It's time for our newspaper review, and we have a guest in the studio already to help us look at some of our national dailies. Stories, a lot of stories making the headlines. This Monday morning, we have Mr. Uche Egu. He is a public affairs analyst. You're welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you. I'm a lawyer, actually.
A barrister. Would you prefer us put in the name Barrister Ebu?
Mr. will be fine with me.
All right, sir. Welcome to
Thank you
the
for
show.
joining
Thank you
us.
very much.
All right, in case you're just watching, this program is audience participatory. You can use the phone lines on your screen to call and, of course, make contributions or ask questions where necessary.
Yeah.
Let's roll. We have the first story from ABS website right now. And the first story that says, Obiano backs another award for good governance. Bishop Ezo abolishes church wedding before traditional marriage in Aguat Diocese. Christians enjoined to sustain work on evangelism. Anambra Information Commissioner Adin Obata's media practitioners on objectivity and balance. Finally, France wins 2018 FIFA World Cup. Let's take it from there. Actually, I'm so much interested in number 2 because I've been wondering, you know, after you've given somebody a ring at
in the church,
you go back to start looking for the person with a cup of wine, you know?
Well, I think he actually has his reasons why he abolished that.
Okay,
well,
on that, I think it's a conflict between two customs. We have a traditional society. At the same time, we have a borrowed culture. So there's a problem. Do you follow this or do you follow that? So we tend to have a compromise between the two. I think the church and the church community and the traditional society should find a way, should have a happy medium, one way of accommodating each other. It is, we cannot be boxed in this or that. We can have a way of accommodating both wedding customs. That's my view on that.
All right, Obiano backs another award for good governance.
Obiano, I'm not surprised by that. I don't belong to any political party. I am a concerned citizen, and I see the governor is doing a wonderful job with respect to so many things. I could go on this. So let me give an example with the security situation in Anambra State, where right now people are, I think it's the safest state in the country. And there used to be a time in Awka, for example, where shops would close at 6 p.m. Now shops and stores and restaurants open up until 1 a.m. People, maybe because of our level of development, don't understand what the governor is doing for the state. There's what they call man hours. Man hour has increased the man hours of work or business activity in the state, and it accrues in terms of tax earnings of the state and employment for the youth. I give you an example. Those that watch soccer, they have this Champions League once in a while to be 7:45, another time it will be 8:45. Actually, is the same time. But in Europe and America, to gain 1 additional hour during winter time of business activity, 1 additional hour, everybody has to adjust his clock or his watch, gaining 1 hour. Obiano has given about 6 hours of business activity to the people of Anambra, especially Awka and the other big towns. So in terms of those things, you can say that the governor has done a wonderful job. But you look at our city. I used to call it a capital village. I can no longer call it that, because now you look at the place, it looks bright. The expressway has been done, and then Awka is a booming place now. Thank you.
All right. Talking about the France winning the World Cup 2018 edition at that, how elated are you today?
I'm not elated at all. If I could avoid that thought, because my preferred teams, they left the competition. They were kicked out. But congratulations to France.
Maybe you want to tell us your preferred team that was kicked out.
I have a bunch of them. Okay. The thing, this is one of the weirdest World Cups. I've been watching World Cups since 1978. And this is the weirdest. Those you expect not to win will win. Those that did very well were kicked out early. Iran did very well. One of my favorite teams, unlike most of us Nigerians, is actually England. And they made some mistakes. This was a great opportunity for them to reach the finals and even win the cup. One other team, Germany. I've always loved Germany and their German soccer.
They went out in the group stage.
They went out very early. They were very arrogant. Yeah, they were very arrogant. They believe once they show up, they'll win the cup.
All right, let's run for want of time. The next paper is the Sun newspapers.
Well, let's see stories making the headlines. Daily Sun, Ekiti, it is fire me. Big one, jubilation, protest as APC candidate scores 197,450 votes to emerge winner. Eleka PDP rejects result as Wike others allege fraud. Buhari Tinubu congratulates governor-elect. Now, underneath that story, of course, France crushes Croatia to win World Cup. Now, 4 policemen burnt to death in Edo State. Abacha loot. Reps begins probe this week. Now, on top of Daily Sun this morning, Igbo wants Biafra. IPOP tells Atiku again. Group rejects restructuring. Now, the big story, Daily Sun this morning, Ekiti, it is fire me. Of course, we know what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, well, the tendency here is for those in power to use all levers of power to oppress and suppress the opposition or somebody who they don't want to be in power. I don't have the full facts on Fayemi and on the election in Ekiti State, but allegations of voter fraud and intimidation and brutalization of people have been rife at least in the social media. There was one where they said the tabulation was askew, really, where combined votes of APC and PDP were larger than the overall votes. So that kind of inconsistency, beggars description. I don't know. The courts eventually will have to settle this matter. I'm sure this matter will end up in court.
Okay. Well, I think the APC party is already waiting for the PDP in court. But let's see how it's going to turn out. But for the meanwhile, we've seen that Fayemi rather is actually the governor-elect of Ekiti State.
Congratulations.
Now, all right. Now, 4 policemen burned to death in Edo State.
4 policemen burned to death.
Doing recognition
doing
in
what?
Edo State. Well, that story is on page 4 of Daily Sun. We don't have the full details here. But then again,
the thing with police, sometimes it's like, is this the chicken before the egg or egg before the chicken? Are the policemen bad, therefore we cannot help them at all? Or they are bad, whichever way I turn it, So the thing is that if they are good officers doing their duties very well, we as a society is supposed to be supporting them and making their work environment much better. The equipment are antiquated, the vehicles are not good. Then
quickly, let's touch this before we move to the next paper. Igbo wants Biafra. IPOP tells Atiku. Again, group rejects restructuring. Atiku was on visit for votes for 2019 presidential aspirant that is aspiring to go. What's your take on this?
My take on this is that a politician will promise you anything you want to hear. So the deal is, if you have my personal opinion on Biafra, I would want an economic Biafra before any other type of Biafra. We develop and invest in our area and make it like the Japan of Africa. Then we can move from there. But for us to go full hog into this thing might not. People from other parts of Nigeria are opposed to it. I'm not saying they have the right to stop us, but I think Biafra now, let's invest in our area first, develop it before going on to the next level.
All right, let's move on. The next paper for review this morning is the Daily Times newspaper. I think this Ekiti election is taking all the papers this morning. The banner headline to have the APC, Ekiti Guba poll, APC takes over Southwest as INEC declares Fayemi winner. With riders there, Buhari, Seraki, Tinubu, others congratulate Fayemi. Secondos calls for calm as PDP rejects results. Up there we have Afrexim Bank proving Africa can do something meaningful. That's coming from the president. We have BOI, Dangote gets $1.4 billion loan. Down here we have fact to probe Federal Inland Revenue Services over 90 billion naira shortfall. And let's just take, 20 years after France win World Cup in Russia. Let's take on the up there. that Afreximbank proving Africa can do something, meaningful?
Africa can do something meaningful. What is the net worth of Afreximbank? And how are they helping countries in whatever they do? With corruption rife in Africa, all these chest thumping, we are doing great, you are doing, in relation to who? So I don't know. They are this praising and lauding ourselves. It's not going to do us any good. Most African countries are not performing well by any indices of performance in the world. In terms of productivity, we have the lowest in the world. So saying that we are doing great, sometimes you have to tell ourselves the truth as to our performance. In terms of manufacturing in the world, African performance, Black Africa is less than 1% of world manufacturing.
Well, I think apart from what you're saying, they can actually do something meaningful. That's what they are proposing.
And praising by, we always hear this phrase, it's meaningful, reasonable, we are doing very well. Even when you're not doing well, you're praising yourself. Yeah. It's like what goes on in some schools these days. Somebody's not doing well, you pat the person on the head. I remember years back, if you don't do well, if you came third or second in school, your dad will push you further to come first. So let's compare ourselves to other continents and not praise ourselves in isolation. That's my take on that.
All right, it's still Good Morning Anambra, and this is Newspaper Review. We still have Barrister Uche Egwu in the studio this morning. And please, the phone lines are on your screen to call and ask questions or make contributions on any story raised here from our national dailies. The next part for review now is
the leadership. Story making the headlines this morning. Ekiti, 4 years after Fayemi returns to Ayaba House. Now, underneath that story, PMB, Saraki, APC, others excited over victory. PDP rejects result, heads to court. Nigerians have spoken, says Lahi Mohammed. Now, on top of that story, in education, we have attained new heights in Taraba State. I think that's actually coming from the governor of the state. Now, underneath that story, London court orders Wale Tinubu's firm to pay Ansbury 245 billion naira. China offshore oil firm to invest $3 billion in Nigeria. Underneath that story, France crowned World Cup champion 20 years after. 23 soldiers, 8 trucks missing in Borno after Boko Haram ambush. TUC rejects federal government plans for $350 million Abacha loot. Now, the big story has always been the election on Saturday, 84 years after Fayemi returns to Ayaba House.
Okay, the Fayemi Fayose, you can't even say this real Fayemi Fayose. You have your tongue beaten. I don't know what's going on in that state. Is it these two people only who are qualified to be governors of that state? One time it is Fayemi, another time it's Fayemi. Is it a personal feud between these two people? That aside, I think the jury is still out on the election, so to say, because I don't think the losing party, losing in quotes, is happy with the situation, and hopefully the matter will not take a violent turn, will end up in court, so the court will decide on what actually happened, based on facts, I hope.
Okay, the education sector of Taraba State, they are giving themselves a pat at the back.
They've actually attained new
great height in the education sector. What's your take?
In Taraba State.
My take on that, so I'll make reference to my last comment on AfriBank. You can't praise or rate yourself in isolation. It has to be in comparison. So compared to Anambra State, are you doing well? Compared to Imo State, are you doing well? Compared to any state in the south, are you doing well? Maybe you're doing better than Zamfara State. It's not a cause for plaudits. It's not a cause for you to be applauding yourself. You have to compare yourself with somebody far ahead of you. And if you have made great strides in catching up with the person, then you can praise yourself. This issue, I think some of these praises are mainly political. They think by making those praises, people will be hoodwinked into believing that they are performing very well.
All right, moving ahead, we have the Nigerian Tribune paper for review right now. The first story, banner headlines, Olushola, Fayemi as he becomes Ekiti governor-elect says, Olushola Fayose should accept defeat as I did 4 years ago. I think we're going to look at this with riders there. The first says, be magnanimous in victory. Buhari tells Fayemi. Saraki, Tinubu goes governors, APC, congratulate him. Jubilation in Adoikere, Ish and others, and presidency mocks Fayoshe. Now up there, dialogue with a vote seller. I wonder what that means actually. Gunmen kill 4 policemen. I think this is appearing the second time in the papers this morning. 4 policemen killed in Edo, set bodies ablaze. Now 23 soldiers, 8 trucks missing in Borno after Boko Haram ambush. Let's begin with that banner headlines there, where Fayemi is telling Olusola and Fayose to accept defeat as he did 4 years ago.
Okay, it's very interesting. The circumstances might not be the same. The facts might not be the same. I can make reference to the practice of law in Nigeria where if you have 2 cases, one in Port Harcourt, one in Abuja, not the same set of facts, your files are not the same, the lawyers are the same, you expect the same outcome. People will say, why did the judge in Abuja give this kind of ruling and the one, the judgments are conflicting. Okay, what is happening?
I think Olusola is actually saying that the reason he rejects it is that he won in 70% of local votes.
Okay, that's good. My having made reference, I made that analogy because in this situation, you don't know how, if you were beaten resoundingly in the previous election, you had no choice than to concede. In this situation, it might be different, and you say, okay, concede defeat. Let me not be legalistic at this point, but I could be. What is defeat? Defeat through fraud, is that defeat? So why would we accept a fraudulent defeat? I'm not saying that's what happened. So we are, as I said before, we are still to know exactly what transpired. Our reference to somebody selling votes, I think you mentioned it. It's one of the critical issues we have to. We have a solid and sound and credible police force. It is their job to make sure anybody that breaks the law will have to be prosecuted and convicted. If you're selling votes, I think it's against the Electoral Act. Anybody caught doing that should be made example out of.
All right, let's run. The Punch newspaper is next for review.
All right, stories making the Punch this morning. PDP rejects Fayemi's victory, says it's daylight robbery. Big one. EFCC to Fayose, we are expecting you soon. Now, that's something we want to talk about. Underneath that story, World hails France wins. London Arbitration Court awards $680 million against Wale Tinubu's firm. Now, custom officers kills 2 colleagues in Lagos. Troops missing after Boko Haram attacked military base. Now, on top of the Punch this morning, Ekiti governor-elect vows to pay workers' salary arrears in 6 months. Reps panel to question Obasanjo, Jonathan, others over Abacha loot. Big one, PDP rejects Fayemi victory, says it's daylight robbery. EFCC to Fayose, we are coming for you soon.
One of the things I would like to comment on is the issue. If the governor had not been paying salaries of his workers, I think it's a great liability, a great slaw on his reputation. You cannot afford, it's not proper. I think it's a compact where if you work, you get paid. I don't understand this issue of governors not paying salaries. That aside, the contest as to the election is still going on. Luckily, we know the history of Western Nigeria with regard to election. They used to call them Wild Wild West. And at this time, we don't have that issue of violence, as far as I can tell. So it's good news for our political advancement that we don't have violence now. That's why I believe in the end, there will be a resort to the courts. Daylight robbery is paradoxical. It's ironic that you have over 20,000 uniformed personnel and you're calling it daylight robbery, unless the people supposed to be the arbiters and protectors of the people are the people doing the illegal act. So I'm just want to mention the irony of it.
You know, that's the big one. Yes. No, I
on the EFCC, on the EFCC thing, it's as if it's the arm. The FCC has become the arm of the party in power. It's not supposed to be so. We are supposed to have an independent institution that is supposed to be fair to everybody.
Because we know that Fayose has actually, I don't want to use the word enemy of, the present administration, but he has always been the man who
all right.
tackling
Let's quickly go back to the Guardian newspapers now. The last day we have the banner headline still on Ekiti election, Fayomi's victory and endorsement of Buhari administration, says FG with riders there. PDP reject outcome. All right, we see the pictures on in the front there. I think that's jubilation from the winners.
And the French team.
Yeah, the winners of the 2018
Russia World Cup.
World Cup. And up there, I think that's the much we can take for that. What's the take?
Let me go back to the EFCC threat. I think it's rather crude, thuggish, and primitive for you to tell somebody we are coming. As a professional body, you do your research, you do your investigation, have your files ready, and shut up. When it's time to pick the person up, you go and pick him up.
All right, and that's just about it on newspaper review this morning. Would like to appreciate you so much, Barrister Uche Egu, public affairs analyst, as you are on the seat this morning.
Okay.
That's what you represent.
And not to forget, he's also
no
a
problem.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And many thanks for having you. Well, that's the much we have on newspaper review this morning. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the next segment.